Okay. Thanks for being here. Sorry about the delay in the start of the meeting. Um, we are going to go ahead and get started. Does anybody have any comments, public comments on any non-agenda items? Okay. All right, so we will start with the consent agenda, I believe. Trying to get my computer going.
So as far as today's agenda, I'm just looking through. We won't be reaching, so under work session, we're not going to reach the affirmative action DI statement. So take that one off. That's going to come to January. And then for, I think that, in discussion and action items 9E, and I can explain it to you when we get there, but the customer satisfaction survey summary, we don't actually have a summary this year because no one answered, made any recommendations of what they wanted to change. So that summary is based on that question 11 of, if you wanted to change anything, what would it be? And we only had 5 respondents to our survey this year. And so no one chose to say anything. So that was kind of a unique situation. So we won't really have a summary on that piece. But other than that, I believe that's the only amendments that I have for today.
Okay. All right. Were there any changes to the September board minutes?
And as a reminder, those were a part of Carry On.
I reviewed them and I did not see any issues, or they looked great.
Yeah. And yeah, November as well.
Great.
Okay. Okay, so ED report, yeah.
Yeah. So for your executive director report, that also came in Carry On and Dr. O'Neill. So you'll see kind of the process you get as a board member. You'll get the first initial upload of materials, and then oftentimes we'll get either cases that come in late or documents that we need to process late, and so you'll get a Carry On upload. And so that's what happened yesterday. We try to get it out at least 24 hours ahead. Sometimes we fail at that. Sometimes we are successful. But this is part of the Carry On. And usually I will have a budget report during my ED report, but this month has been a little bit funky because we have a new budget analyst, and the original documentation that I got from her originally said we had about 11 or almost 12 months of cash expenditure left remaining, which is odd. And then she redid the numbers, and then it came back at like 1.5 months of ending cash balance. Yeah, so Hari, I agree that your facial expression was mine. So we're trying to figure out, and she's new to the work and just getting trained. And so we're going to kind of convene a little meeting early next week and figure out what the process is. My guess is we're right around 4 or 5 months. But also part of that hiccup was September's revenue was a little bit lower than expected because some of the renewal portal and other issues that were going on. So I think we've gotten that situated. And so some of those monies coming due are going to actually show themselves in later months' income. So anyway, I don't have a budget projection, which is such a unique situation to be in. But I will let you know as soon as I get that. And for welcome, Corey, welcome to the group and welcome to the board. Thanks for wanting to be part of this body. And I know that Lori and I just actually provided the board member orientation on last Monday. So it's kind of like jumping, into the deep end. But welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be a part of the group.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken.
For Mackenzie, you want to take IT updates?
Absolutely. So we have had quite a few months, the last few months. in a lot of positive ways, but with any IT transition, there's been some rough patches. So Cass was discussing the payment issue that happened in September. So a lot of payments that would have normally happened in that time frame actually happened in October or even early November. So that would affect budget, but also we were just trying to figure out who didn't pay or thought they did and actually it wasn't processed and all that sort of thing. So on that point, staff has worked really, really hard to catch up and make sure that everyone was connected with and payments were righted and understood and everything like that. So there's been an excellent job on that front. We've also transitioned to having DAS, which is Department of Administrative Services. So for those non-state folks, that's kind of our umbrella agency. They actually are now our full-time IT desktop support, which has been an excellent change. It's also been a process. And so a lot of our energy has gone to that over the last few months. DAS has been so wonderful to work with and very helpful in supporting us through this, but they also were kind of surprised by this transition. So we've been really like just working together in that transition. So it's been a good process, but again, staff has also been very flexible and had to find workarounds for things that we didn't expect to maybe not work the way we thought it would. So it's been all kind of a part of our process. Lastly, another part of that process has been our server. As many of you know, our server was actually held in office, like in our office in Salem, on site for a long time. And until recently, that's kind of how things were. Now we actually are on the state server, which means that everything's backed up beyond unbelievable doubt. And there's also like many backups across, different locations. And so what it provides for us is a lot of safety and security, but also increased safety and security for our devices as well. So that's a huge plus, and definitely will be really positive moving forward for the future of the agency. Lastly, in Lumen, as you guys know, that there was a huge delay over the summer due to the company not following CJIS procedure. So we basically cut off the process of the project for a while. That began again once they completed all the requirements, and those were validated. And we have been working on KPMs. So that's kind of our biggest, as you guys know, every year CAS provides these KPMs to us, and they're big documents. What we're trying to do is create these reports in a virtual software setting. So that means it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to make sure it's correct. So that's kind of the main project that we're working on right now, and we're making decent progress, but I do anticipate it taking us a few minutes here because it's a lot of data. So we're just trying to make sure that everything looks good before we go live. That's all, Cass.
Well, thank you. And I really want to take a minute to really wholeheartedly thank you, Mackenzie, for being point on all of these projects all at the same time. And it has been like the last 3 months, 4 months have been insane. But I just wanted to thank you and to thank all staff as well. With like you were saying, the flexibility and the kind of, okay, this is what we're doing now. Let's just move ahead, and just kind of scrambling to figure it out. I've just been really appreciative of everybody's really great positive attitude around it and accepting of the bumps, and kind of, I think the initial rollout seemed so smooth that we were actually surprised that following Monday, like, oh wait, the database. Oh yeah, how do we do that? How do we do all these things? In addition to having loaner devices, in addition to having all these things that we weren't familiar with. So I just really am grateful for how really smoothly it has all run. I know it doesn't feel that way, but it really does. So November, so board members, November kind of disappeared on all of us. We have really no idea what happened in November other than our IT stuff. So I'm happy to see you. We have a board packet, we have material, but it feels very much like we just threw it together for you. So January's meeting, when we're all together, it will be a little bit more settled and a little bit more secure. But thank you, Mackenzie, again. It's been amazing. And now for our board meeting dates and locations, I have them highlighted in my report. Last meeting we determined the dates and locations of the meetings for 2024. But Heather actually realized this and brought this to my attention, that there's only 50 miles between Corvallis and Newport. And so if we actually wanted to diversify our location, we may want to change one or both of those locations to be broader spread. So I'd entertain any kind of suggestion at this point. We haven't.
Corvallis.
Go ahead. No, actually, what I was just going to say, Karen, is we haven't been to Corvallis. I mean, I've been with the agency 9.5 years, and I've never been to Corvallis with the agency. So I think that would be a really good place to go if everyone wants to in May. And then we just need to determine then where we want to be in September.
Well, I mean, is Lincoln City far enough away?
It's not that far.
No.
Why don't you guys come down to Coos Bay?
I mean, we could.
We were supposed to, and then COVID happened. So
No. Oh,
No,
I'm like, just don't say the North Coast. I'm like, come down to this. If you're coming to the
Yeah.
beach, come to the South Coast.
we could go to Coos Bay though. We were supposed to go there for Amber's last meeting.
That's right.
Oh, and we can get her to come.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's absolutely possible if that's where we want to be.
It's
That
not.
work?
It's not exciting, but
You're there.
you're more than welcome.
Well, we'll get a lot of work done then, huh?
Mhm.
We can all crash at Lori's.
That's right.
They do have a casino.
They do. They do.
Well, so do we want to explore Coos Bay as an option then?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we'll check on Coos Bay. And that is your executive director report.
Thank you. Thank you, Cass. Thank you, Mackenzie. Did we get an OCA update? Is there anybody on?
Oh, actually, sorry. OCA, I am not sure. I dropped the ball in reaching out to them. They generally know when the board meetings are, so I would anticipate I'll ping them again to see if they have an update. And I just got an email from Joe Brimhall saying that he's on a plane this morning, but he doesn't think there's anything urgent to report and that he'll be a little bit more proactive in responding in the future. So no reports so far.
Okay. What time is it? So let's go on to the PMP subcommittee update.
All right, just give me one moment to get the first one up and rolling.
So I think if, to remind the board, so we ended up having, how many, Heather, like 10 or 11, maybe 12 topic areas that the PMP subcommittee were going to review and come out with individualized policies. And these were I think these are the two of the last three that are outstanding remaining. I think the last one is the substances and supplements, right, Seth? And that's a large kind of chunk to handle, but that's forthcoming.
Back over halfway through it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Poor Seth. He ended up
I don't
drafting.
talk about it.
He ended up drafting it and then losing the document completely off his machine. So he's got to recreate, perfection. I'm sure it was absolutely perfect.
Shakespearean.
So we've all had rough Novembers apparently. So anyway, so the allergy and food sensitivity policy, and then the energy medicine devices, and actually I think the energy medicine we've seen before and we had questions about. So the allergy and food sensitivity is up on your screen.
Okay, sorry, I was getting a kid out the door. Did anybody have any changes or suggestions on this one? Feels pretty straightforward, but
Well, you know what they say about, writing things, shorter rather than longer. This was originally a much longer policy, much more detailed, and it just took a lot of work to get it as succinct as we could. But the subcommittee was phenomenal about it. So yeah, if there's any changes or not, we can vote
I
on.
was gonna ask, who's interpreting the results of these tests, or is this something most chiropractors refer out for?
Give me to take that one.
Yeah, go ahead, Seth.
I do a lot of food sensitivity in my testing in my practice. The lab, basically, you send the sample in. Most sensitivity food testing these days is not done with stool sample. That's antiquated old technology. It's mainly serum testing now, either serum or like a blood spot on a card, depending on if you don't want to do venipuncture or if you've got like a child that can't handle a 23 gauge needle. The lab sends you back a report. So they give you the information, and then it's basically up to you if you want to sit down with the patient, which is what I do. I sit down and go over the results with the patient, make a game plan. I don't know what other practices do. They may just give you the results. Some of these tests, actually, you can order yourself and the lab will send it to you, and all you have to do is supply the blood sample, and then they send you back the result. You don't have to work with the physician at all. So it just depends on what you do. But yeah, to answer your question, mainly the lab gives you back the result. It's not like the office, at least as far as I know. I don't know any CLIA certified clinics in Oregon that are chiropractic that draw a sample and have the technology to analyze the results in the clinic. It's too cumbersome and too expensive to try and do that accurately. So it's the lab that sends you back the results.
One suggestion I'm seeing in the CA section is it says certified chiropractic physician assistants.
Oh,
Are we specifying physician
No.
assistants, or are we trying to clarify? Okay.
no, that should be just chiropractic assistants. Yeah. Good catch.
Any other changes or concerns? All right, then we need to vote to adopt as amended, correct?
Yep.
Well, I will make a motion to adopt the policy as amended.
Second.
Lori seconds. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Write everybody's names down. Okay. Seth?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
An aye for myself. I think that's everybody.
Mhm.
Okay, motion passes. All right. Moving on to energy medicine devices.
So this one's still in draft form because of the first time it came before you. If you remember, we had some footnotes or endnotes that didn't make it to the draft because we had, as a group, as a subcommittee, thought, oh, they may be cumbersome. We'll just bring it to the board. And then the board said, but there's no definition or explanation of what actually these devices are. So the footnote endnote actually describes a little bit more detail of what they are and what they previously had been referred to. And so that's why they're now included. If you feel like it's necessary to keep, we can keep them and move on ahead. And my only hesitation with this type of footnote is I'm not sure if it's, kind of that second paragraph in the ECSDP committee, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if any of that is really necessary. If the endnote is necessary to the understanding of the main policy.
My only advocacy for potentially keeping that about the ET is that I feel like we've gotten those questions a lot lately, like who decided this was or wasn't, or
Yeah, That's true.
But I'm not married to it either. If somebody has a strong opinion.
Should we change subsequence to subsequent?
Yes. Good catch, Gina. Thanks. Mackenzie, can you scroll up just so that we can see the body of the policy too? I don't know why we need to bold the energy medicine devices in the body of the language. And I don't, I'm not a fan of the italics either, but it's up to.
I agree with you, Kath. I don't think they're necessary. They don't serve a purpose.
Yeah.
How about they claim rather than they are claimed?
Well, it's kind of an interesting because the devices themselves aren't the ones purporting to use these things, right? I mean, it's the people
That's the
who use them.
manufacturer.
Yeah. Because that's a whole other section if the devices are actually talking. So I think we can actually change it to energy medicine devices or the manufacturers of energy medicine. I mean, actually, I'm sorry, Mackenzie, I'm at the first sentence at the very beginning. Yeah, the manufacturers of and then or nanotechnology within what would be the appropriate ending here for to use? Um,
Technology, just nanotechnology technology, or I mean, methods. Because aren't you describing what the quantum mechanics and all that is? Is that a method or a?
yeah, and I'm looking at the second sentence, and it's in nanotechnology. To be what's the sentence?
What about just in their modality, in this modality?
There you go. Thank you.
Do you mean at the beginning of the sentence? So in this modality, they are claimed, or at the end of the sentence?
Into the sentence.
I think it's good there.
Okay.
Maybe these devices, or it is claimed that these devices have thousands of. Yeah. Now, the question is it really necessary if the policy is that these devices are outside scope? Do we need to get into this level of detail? Because really, I mean, if you remember, our issues are usually, is it within the scope of Oregon licensed chiropractic physicians to utilize energy medicine devices? That's usually the issue. This issue, as it's stated right now, is rather much more the reasoning.
So does that, with that comment, does that mean that second sentence in the first paragraph can just go?
Well, my I guess my statement is we can actually, Mackenzie, if you want to just take that whole paragraph, pull it down, just space it out a minute. No, I mean yeah. So bring the text of the issue as it's stated right now down further. And we're going to create a new issue.
I see. Okay, one moment.
Yeah. And actually, the normally stated issue is whether it is within the scope. A scope of practice of Oregon chiropractic licensees. There we go. So
How
do we
about these devices have thousands of pre-programmed scenarios and library references organized into defined groups, which are claimed to create.
Well, before we get in there, do we even need it? So if the issue is whether they're within or outside scope, do we need this reasoning, or can we just say they're not?
I would take the entire explanation of what these devices are, remove it, and just have the policy say, no, they're not in scope, period. I think we've done that with other policies instead of getting bogged down and trying to define what it is, just saying, no, you can't use them.
Yeah. And then leave the end note?
I would probably leave the end note because it explains at least part of the rationale of why they're not in scope.
Mm-hmm.
And it also kind of lays a blanket as far as what devices are currently referred to, because this will probably have to be updated with time as more and more technology, devices, who knows what's coming out of where.
Yeah.
Because when we were doing this, there was one device that no one had ever heard of on the subcommittee, but it's in Europe.
Yeah.
But no one in Oregon has it, and there's like all the websites are Italian.
All right, so do we like the way this looks?
I think it serves the purpose.
Nope.
Anybody feeling like they might want to make a to approve this?
Anybody motiony?
If it's not overstepping, I'll make a motion to accept this policy as amended.
Thanks, Seth.
Second.
Scott, second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Seth,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Scott,
Sorry. Aye.
Corey,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. Motion passes.
Awesome. Thank you. The next up on the agenda is the rule hearing that starts at 9. So the question for you as a group is, do we want to do something before then? Do we want to take a little bit of a break? What would you like to do?
Well, what can we get done?
Looking at the discussion and action items, because we have no rules review outside the rule hearing. Board elections is going to take a little bit of time, and along that comes a liaison. We could talk about whether the board wants to mandate CE outside of regular renewal hours.
We can do that.
Okay.
So within the 20 hours, we have 2 hours of cultural competency and 1 hour of suicide intervention. So then the question is, does the board want to mandate any other CEs for 2024? Which usually attempts to educate licensees at large on problems that we see frequently.
Is there anything that has come up in cases that we reviewed, or staff, if there's anything that's come up kind of on our side of things that folks don't seem to be understanding or getting?
Cass, I was going to maybe suggest, it seems like quite frequently people are either unaware or just don't record vitals that often, at least on the cases I've reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we need to actually do something on vitals, because I think most people know how to take them, but it might be a good reminder that it is a requirement during intakes. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, the other possibility, rather than mandating CE around it, would just be to include it in our next e-blast, which I'm hoping to get out after our elections happen today. So I'll be getting the e-blast out for early December. So we could include it as a topic there.
And Cass, just wanted to remind everybody that also last year, we started the maintenance of the basic life support, and a lot of DCs are also working on that. So I just kind of wanted to give a reminder that last year that was also included in the rule.
So maybe,
And go ahead, Michelle.
I was gonna say maybe a good idea to not for 2024 while everybody gets caught up.
I was going to make a strong suggestion to not just on our staff side, trying to get Inlumin up and tracking and all that. It's going to be really, it's going to be a struggle to pull it all together and also include additional CE tracking. So if you guys don't mind, we would greatly appreciate not having that additional.
I have a quick question on the e-blast. I got about 4 people that wrote me, of course, as they get closer to their renewal date, that were confused on the wording on the website about mandated CE hours, because, and I looked at it, this was months ago, they were saying that on one drop-down menu, it indicates that there's no CE mandated hours. But then on another drop-down, it indicates that there's cultural competency and suicide prevention. So the questions I was getting is that there was just confusion. And I did circle back, I think, to Mackenzie or Heather, I can't remember what I was saying, like, this is what I'm telling people, that basically it's cultural competency and it's suicide prevention, but there's nothing additional mandated. But there just seemed to be confusion. It could just be those people are overly evaluative of a website and concerned, put it that way. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's something that even needs to be addressed, but maybe instead of rewriting the entire website, just on eBlast saying there are no mandated hours additional to the 20 hours that do include cultural
Yeah.
competency and suicide prevention. Don't ask any more questions.
I think
And don't write me.
I've had that too, and I think it's kind of a little bit more of a semantics kind of thing, because I mean those are technically kind of mandated, but then it says no, not mandated. So so I don't know how to make that clear, but it is a confusing thing, and I think it's more semantics.
I think one way we can handle it is in the eBlast itself, explain, during a normal year, here's your 20 hours of renewal, which includes this, this, and this. The board also has discretion to mandate additional CE in addition to the renewal amounts. And this year we're not doing that. And we do that. I mean, every time we've done this CE, the mandated CE, we explain it, but obviously people aren't aware or get confused. So we can be clear, much clearer in the eBlast for sure. And I'm not sure what the website looks like.
It's
Yeah,
so
and
there, because there is, if this is what Seth is talking about, because I've had people asking about it too. In the CE page, the first drop down under for chiropractors is the DC board mandated education for current license year, and that's where it says no mandated, and then it breaks it down into first year, second year, and regular status and so on. If there's nothing that's new for the current year, is that a drop down menu that could go away and only come back when, with like a asterisks or something highlighted of, new for 2025 or whatever year it may be?
no, but
Okay.
as the webmaster, unfortunately, that would be me. No, that would be really difficult, but we would send out an eBlast, we would notify people. There would be like a little ribbon at the very front page when you go to the website that would indicate that something had been different. If you guys had voted to have 2024 mandated CE, that would be like an indication that, things would be very like, this is something you need to pay attention to. I think though, if I could speak, I know Miriam has probably some things to say on what was being discussed too, because she is the DC renewal person. When we there was a year that the board had actually voted to include cultural competency as exactly what we just discussed, the year's mandatory CE selection. And then the next year, like halfway through that year, the state said, hey, by the way, all healthcare people are required to complete cultural competency every year. So that is a huge root of this problem, because we had already kind of been ahead of the game, but then the state required it, and licensees I don't think understood that when that year transitioned to the next year, it was still required, but it's not mandated. There's a difference. Required and mandated are two different things. So when you guys vote on this every year, it's a mandate. What's required are the specific hours required by either the state or something else. And so I think that is a continual problem that we've been explaining, but we've also sent out a lot of communication. When that whole thing did go down, I think it was like 2.5 months of like hundreds of calls that the staff answered that question. So I just wanted to point that out, that required and mandated are two different things, and some folks are still a little unsure as to like how to make sense of that. But I'm definitely open to suggestions on the website of what we can do differently. I just don't think removing a whole section is possible with that.
Do you think it'd be possible if it said, so right now it says no mandated CE for 2023 period, fine. Could we add a sentence after that, see below for your yearly requirements, or some sentence of like, okay, there's nothing new mandated for this year, but then check below whether you're a first year, second year, regular, or senior, and see what's required for your yearly CE, just so that they're prompted to keep, look at that next section.
We could. I mean, yeah, I guess if they're not, then they're gonna get audited and told that they didn't though. So I mean, we can absolutely add that and point them down.
Let's work on the language, Mackenzie, you and I, because I think we can edit it to make it sound like something along the lines of no additional mandated CE other than,
What's already
usual
required or
renewal
something.
hours or something. And
Yeah,
so we can
absolutely.
edit it. Yeah.
Yeah, so Karen, I will make a notation in our notes here that Cass and I will take a look at that.
Okay, if you think it'd be helpful.
Yeah. I think whatever we can do around trying to clarify it as much as we can, it will be helpful for sure. But just so long as we're not voting on any additionally mandated CE, right, for 2024. Okay.
No.
Yes.
Cass,
Okay.
I just sent you an idea about that in an email.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Lori.
Perfect.
Um,
It's 8:50, so I'm gonna take like a 5-minute break to use the facilities, and I'm gonna sign back in on my computer now, and so I don't have a tiny screen. Yeah, we'll be back
awesome.
5 minutes so that we can get set up for the rule hearing.
Thanks, everybody.